You are Locked On Texans Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Houston on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, good evening and welcome to our very first on this channel, the Locked On Texans Postcast. Thanks for stopping by. You have been joining me this season for a lot of Astros talk. Well, guess what? We've got football talk for you now. This is a channel that we, of course, have all your Houston teams covered. The Locked On Texans right here. Of course, go check out that Locked On Texans podcast as well. Get it anywhere that you get your podcast. Same goes for the Astros, Rockets, Cougs. We got you all covered. But it's time, finally. I know that it's a preseason game. Now, look, they have not, as I'm sitting here scrolling Twitter, I have not seen that they've officially called this game, or there it is. Yes, the game has been over, and the Texans lose 21-7 in their preseason opener, the Hall of Fame game. We'll talk Hall of Fame in just a bit because I did want to give Andre Johnson a lot of his love. We want to have some overreactions to the preseason. We also want to have some expectations for the season to talk about. If you're new to the channel tonight, by the way, please hit that subscribe button. Would greatly appreciate that. We're with you again after every single Texans game all season long. Rockets, Astros, Cougs, all of them right here. And unfortunately tonight, you don't get to play all four quarters. The only guys that are really down in the dumps about that, of course, are the backups that we're in at this point of the football game. And, that part does stink about preseason. Now, look, we're going to do this for preseason football games. We're going to see the starters here at some point. Real quick, by the way, this show today is brought to you by the Gametime app. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. We're, of course, going to see starters at some point for a little bit in this preseason. It's going to happen. It always happens. This is just how it goes. If you're new to football, well, then I'm explaining something to you that you don't know. But in all likelihood, a lot of you know this. But, still got to tell you. But you get to see all the backups tonight. Davis Mills comes out and slings the rock a little bit. Man, he is a preseason and stat padding, just fool, I think is the best way to put it. He's about as good as it gets for that. He looked good tonight. Case Keenum had some throws tonight. The Texans, they are, I know that we get all hot and bothered about a lot of things and, or wonder about things. I shouldn't even say hot and bothered. Is there really anything to be hot and bothered about with this football team anymore? I don't think that there is. We're going into a season now with this football team that, I have never, ever, ever felt this kind of hype and excitement for a Houston Texans football team. It's just as simple as that. But if there is one thing that I walked away from this game tonight, outside of that quarterback thing, now, are you ever going to feel great if you lost your quarterback? Like if they lost C.J. Stroud, you're not going to feel great, of course. You're going to feel terrible. But I do know this. They have two guys that are going to be on this roster, quarterback-wise, that are going to be competent behind C.J. Stroud if they need them in a pin. We saw it last year. Case came in and won a game. That's all you need, right? You just got to find a way to get – Davis Mills and Case are both capable of winning. We'll see, if it came down to that. Again, hopefully, fingers crossed, it doesn't. They would feel okay about it. I think that the thing that I'm watching is the running back spot. And, between I know how to say his name in my head, and I'm telling you it's going to come out wrong, so I'm not even going to do it. We're just going to say his first name, and I'm sorry, Dari. I just don't feel comfortable still enough to say your last name, even though we watched you last season be a beast on special teams, kick field goals, put yourself into a spot, but going to get a chance to run the football a little bit. It's about the guys that get the carries behind Joe Mixon this season, which I am I was really not sure about the Joe Mixon addition initially. I was like, man, he's a little long in the tooth for an NFL running back, and to give him a 3-year, extension on it. On top of it, I was interested in that. But you know what? I think I've talked myself into being really excited about Joe Mixon. And to see what guys come behind him, I think is going to be really, really interesting. And between Dari and Cam Akers, This is a guy that's coming off of 2 Achilles injuries. And now, look, I haven't been to a single practice this year. I'm not going to go to any practices this year. The Locked On Texans guys, they're there. Which, again, listen to their show. I've been trying to listen to them consistently recently, trying to get myself into football mode. We've been so deep into baseball with the Astros, and we're still going to do Astros. Don't worry. Astros tomorrow night, Astros all weekend, Astros next week. We'll have Texans next week as well. I will try to do all the games. I'm not going to try to miss a single game for either team, any of the teams. I want to do these. I want to hang out with you guys live on YouTube, of course, on the podcast as well. But just watching Cam Akers move a little bit, man, you would be surprised that if anybody told you that guy's had 2 Achilles surgeries. He has. And he got a little bit of pep in his step still. They could have some actual depth at that running back spot because you kind of go back to that with Joe Mixon as well. Like I said, he's older in his career now at this point. And I know he's already been dealing with some banged up stuff in camp and whatnot. But I mean, look, how many years in is he? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 years, and he's been pretty consistent overall. I know he's had some years I'm looking at it, 14, 16, 6, 16, 14, 17. But, I mean, for the most part, he goes out there and he plays. And you know that he's going to give you production. But he's at the stage of his career that, you can't go out and tote the rock. He 257 times last season. I don't think it's realistic to want to give him the ball 257 times this year. I think about 200 is the number. So you need to have depth there. Right now, I feel good about the depth in the Texans' backfield of what they have. Simple as that. Oh, and to those of you, you guys can comment, of course, on these shows. Hit in the comments. I'll try and read some of them throughout the show. Questions, concerns, disagree, whatever it is. Let's talk. Let's talk Texans football. Coco's not in the room, for those of you that are asking. If you've watched the Locked On Astros postcast, we have a show mascot. Her name is Coco. She is our Chihuahua. We have 3 dogs in this house. And sometimes Coco comes in here, and she's the mascot of the show. She's been on the show twice. She's YouTube famous. She is YouTube famous. I've been told that she's going to get some new apparel as well for her YouTube stardom. So she's not in here. None of them are in here because my wife is out there eating food right now, and all the dogs are hovering around because that's what they do. They're dogs. Let's do some overreactions, baby. No, I'm kidding. Just as a joke for a second. But also, let's talk about expectations for this season because it's our first real chance to talk about it. Look, I'm not going to bog you guys down and breaking down a ton of this football game. There's no point in it, right? It's a game that does not matter. All these guys that played do not matter for the most part. But let's talk about some of the guys that did get out on the field tonight that I'm interested in, that you're probably interested in. Let's talk about expectations for this season as well. We'll do that next here on the Locked On Texans Postcast. But right now, I need to tell you about that Gametime app. That's right, the Gametime app. If you're looking to get out to a football game this season, especially here in our great city of Houston, why not take the Gametime app on your phone and get the tickets there? I mean, it's just great. It's awesome. It's going to get you into the games last minute. And you know what? They're going to have great deals across. They got priority last-minute deals that save up to 60% off buying those last minutes for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, whatever it is. Like I said, those tickets at great deals when you need it last second. Look, you might be one of those people that likes to live on the edge, right? That likes to take it down to the last second when it comes to buying your tickets. I have a couple of friends that do that, and it always works out for them when they use the Gametime app. They've talked me into it as well. The flash deals across the site and the app as well are fantastic. You can save even more on those in-app deals on select games ahead of the game or the event. Of course, Texans tickets this season are going to be incredibly hot and difficult to get. So get in there with the Gametime app. Take the guesswork out of buying NFL tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, and redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Locked On Texans Postcast. Sorry, I usually try to drink my water between our little stops there, but I didn't have the bottle open. After the Texans lost tonight, if you're just tuning in, game was called 21-17 in the middle of was the end of the third quarter there? A few minutes left in that third quarter. The Texans go down. I did listen to a little bit of D'Amico Ryans both on television, and I listened to his radio interview real quick, and he didn't seem like he was overly impressed with the defense tonight. He talked about losing matchups and playing matchup football, and D'Amico's a guy that wants to live in a world where the Texans have, big plays on defense. They have big-time game players. It's just, he's a defensive guy. Of course that is. And last season they took such a step forward defensively. I know you don't have your guys out there, of course, that you necessarily, want to have out there. And I did fail to mention earlier when we were talking about running backs too. I saw the comment, and that's my bad. I took because he didn't play tonight. Of course, you have Damian Pierce as well. I know that he's getting a lot of love in the halfback spot, running back spot in the out of camp talk. We'll see. I'll believe it when I see it with him that he can fit into this. I just don't think his running style fits to what they do. I'm very curious to see how it looks if he's able to figure out a way to be productive in this offense this season. But you don't have any of your guys out there really. I thought it was interesting on the offensive line tonight playing Juice Scruggs. I know that he didn't play a lot last year, and he has been taking the first team snaps as everything that you hear out there at camp, and he gets a start tonight. It's probably a good thing, to get some run, to get that, to break that sweat, do whatever. You got 4 of these preseason games too. That's, for a lot of these players, that's a benefit. It's more show, and that's why a lot of those guys tonight that lose a quarter of football probably have to be very upset because there's a lot of guys that are trying to flash something on tape that won't be for the Texans. It'll be for other teams. So that stinks. You hate that for those guys tonight, but this is the world that we live in. You got to have that inclement weather out there, and I think there's all those bleachers are like metal out there basically. I've never been to Canton, Ohio. If you're out there this weekend, have a great time. We're going to talk Andre Johnson's going to get his gold jacket officially put on him and his bust revealed over there in Canton this weekend. Finally, after all these years, waiting, he got in as he deserved to be. But let's go ahead real quick and talk some expectations for this season this year. Just because, again, there's not too much. I don't know if you guys want me to break down the 2 throws that Tim Boyle completed tonight. He completed 2 throws. There's your breakdown. He went 2 for 5. He's not going to make this team. He's just, again, like all those other guys, trying to put something on tape. But I think for me going into this season, I am very optimistic. I look at the AFC, and of course, the big bad machine, that's the Chiefs. They're going to be, until you knock them off, it does not matter what you say, what you do, right? We all know that. I found them a little bit more, and this comes from Patrick Mahomes is my boy from Texas Tech. We're Texas Tech boys. Come on. I can never go against my guy from Texas Tech. But they're getting a bit, maybe I'm a little bit later to the party. They're a little bit more on the annoying side, finally, to me. Travis Kelce was always on the annoying side. The Taylor Swift stuff made it even worse. But they're the behemoth. They're what dominates this side of the conference. The division this year, what's the deal with Anthony Richardson? How's he going to look when he plays? Is Will Levis actually going to be a guy that can play in this league, or is his gunslinging style going to catch up to him and he's just not that? Is Trevor Lawrence the superstar that they just paid him to be? It's C.J. Stroud's division to win. They won it last year in his rookie year. You have the best quarterback in this division. You have every chance to win. The Texans offseason, I know that we've done a lot of complaining recently about the Astros side of things when it comes to how your general manager operates. The way that the Texans general manager, Nick Caserio, operated this offseason was brilliant. You couldn't have knocked out an offseason better. You really couldn't. From the draft, I thought they did great with their draft. I thought that they did great with free agency. I thought that they did great with trades. simply put, you picked up Mixon, like we said. I think the signing of Danielle Hunter has not gotten any love at all from anybody out there. I shouldn't say from, like, no attention is basically paid to it. He's going to be a monster for this football team. Does stink that you picked up Danico Autry and, he's been popped for, PEDs already. Which, don't you find those hilarious? Like, he sends out a statement like, oh, I never... Have you ever heard of somebody that takes a suspension in sports for performance-enhancing drugs ever say, you know what, yeah, I did it? Other than, like, maybe Andy Pettit in baseball when he just, like, flat out said, yeah, I took HGH. I was coming back, stringing my elbow, right? But, like, what? Save your time. You don't need to tell us that you didn't intend to ingest anything. You took something. Who cares? Nobody cares in football. It's not like the other sports. Nobody cares when guys take anything. We just genuinely don't. We move on from it real quick. But that does leave a little bit of a hole in the, pass rush. So I just thought it was interesting tonight, here in the comments there briefly. I don't think D'Amico Ryans loved the defensive effort from the football game tonight early on. And he's going to put a positive spin on everything, as he should. He's the head coach, and you know what? You got to build these players up. And he knows what he's doing when it comes to that. But you could just tell, again, that the overall thought was, we're not sticking to assignments. We're not doing our thing here. We're not making whatever it might be out in the open field. They just didn't play how D'Amico wanted him to. So, again, let's get back to expectations real quick. We're going to talk Andre Johnson in just a second here in the Locked On Texans Postcast. But I think when I look at the AFC this year, it's the Texans, and I'm going to leave the Chiefs ahead. It's the Chiefs, and then it's, I think, two real teams. And you know what? I got to give it three. Three real teams that can knock Kansas City off this year in the AFC. It's the Bengals, it's the Ravens, and it's the Texans. And I don't even feel great about the Bengals one because, Joe Burrow's coming back from everything that sounds like a legit major, wrist injury. And we'll just see. We'll see, right? I still think that they're going to be really good. I like Joe Burrow. That's the thing. I think he's a really good quarterback. I don't think that Buffalo is going to be in the mix, to knock them off. I mean, they got worse, it felt like, in the offseason. The Dolphins are probably going to be that team that constantly puts up regular season numbers. Tua will pad the stats of Tyreek Hill and Mike McDaniel calling the plays, and it's going to look great and everything. I just don't think they're true contenders. And don't get me started on the Jets stuff. I am so sick and tired of turning on the TV and saying Jets this, Jets that. They hadn't been to the playoffs in like 13 years. I know that their quarterback last year tore his Achilles in the first game in the first quarter of his new home. But my God, it's just overkill. I know it's the national media now, and they only cater to two cities, Los Angeles and New York. It is what it is. I don't really lose any sleep over it. It's not about coverage of the Texans or any other Houston team that bothers me. It's just like, how many days, how many hours, how many minutes, how many seconds can you spend on the same team that has accomplished nothing over and over and over and over again? I don't know. But I mentioned the two teams in the North, the Bengals and the Ravens. Steelers aren't going to be that. I mean, the Browns are going to be competitive, but is anybody convinced that Deshaun Watson's ever going to be able to shake what happened in Houston? And he's still talking about it to this day. Talking about it's hard to shake off the bull, you know what? It's rich when you listen to him talk about it. It's self-inflicted. You had like 20-plus women accuse you of things, and we've all seen the message. It's mind-blowing. And then the AFC West, outside of the Chiefs, Broncos aren't contending. Raiders aren't contending. You'd think the Chargers are, but all of a sudden you've got an issue with Justin Herbert. Plantar fascia in his right foot, I think, was the diagnosis today. I think Harbaugh elevates them there. Good coaching is something that they've been lacking for a long time. But they're in a tier below the Texans. So I go back to my where I think they're at again. Chiefs are in a pack by themselves ahead of everybody else. Then it's Texans, Bengals, and Ravens. Question comes down to which quarterback of that group are you taking? We all know who you're taking, right? Yeah, sure, we're biased as you know what. But it's C.J. Stroud. Even if Joe Burrow's been great in the NFL. Again, he's coming off of injury. They both have weapons. We know that. He's got T. Higgins. I mean, he's loaded over there. Jamar Chase. Sorry, I was blanking on his name for some second. I'm like, why am I forgetting his name? I wanted to call him. I was like, am I going to? I was thinking of somebody else. I was thinking Justin Jefferson. I'm like, that's not him. It's Jamar Chase. And then, of course, here in Houston, you've got Nico Collins. You've got Stephon Diggs now in the mix. You got Tank Dell back healthy. I'm interested to see if you get anything out of John Mechie. I still hold out some hope that you can get something out of John Mechie. Dalton Schultz. Texans tight end group, another thing. That's another thing. Could quietly be something this year between Schultz, Stover, who they took in the draft, and then, of course, who caught the touchdown tonight? I'm blanking on his name off the top of my head. Quitterino. Yeah, Jesus. I mean, look, they got some guys. They got some guys that can do a little something at that tight end spot. And it's been a long time since the Texans have been, tight end rich. They deserve to be tight end rich. I like it. So I think it, again, we'll talk more about this in Postcast moving forward because, we're not going to talk exclusively breaking down a preseason game that doesn't matter the entire time. But I think this is a minimum 11 to 12 win football team. Win their division. Advance in the AFC side of the playoffs. And hopefully, go deep. Super Bowl? Can I predict it now? I'll wait. They got to win a preseason game before I predict Super Bowl. Let's talk about Andre Johnson this weekend. What he means to you, what he means to the city, how great it's going to be to finally see a Texans player go into the Hall of Fame. We'll do that next year in the Locked On Texans Postcast. Well, right now I want to tell you about FanDuel. Did you know that FanDuel tonight you could have thrown down some money on this game? The Texans were 2.5-point favorites coming into this one. That's right. The game ends in suspension, so we'll see how all that goes. But you can get in on the action with football being back. Preseason, baby. It's here. There are lines on the games, and FanDuel is the spot to get out there and to get the action going. They've got something for everybody this summer. All summer long, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day. Like I said, all summer long. Head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Locked On Texans Postcast on a Thursday night. Hope you guys are having a good one. Standalone game, the only team going. It's weird having the Hall of Fame game. I don't understand why they make the teams that play in the Hall of Fame game play 4 preseason games. Why wouldn't you just take a weekend off? But I guess you can't do that because of tickets is probably the answer there. They want to have those stadiums filled, and the gate will matter because people will come. Next week, by the way, the Texans will play in Pittsburgh Friday night against the Steelers. You get to take a look at Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, 2 new quarterbacks there for the Pittsburgh Steelers up against the Texans. Well, we'll see which guys are playing. Who's playing in that one, we'll find out. I doubt it's going to be much, if anybody, still in that second game. But again, 6 o'clock next Friday. I need to pull up the Astros schedule. I mean, they're going to be playing next Friday. But I can't remember where they are off the top of my head. I think they're on the road again. No, yes, they're on the road again. I didn't mean to sing it. Oh, they're playing the Red Sox at 6:10. So that night, I will go ahead and tell you, we might do them back to back. Actually, I might just put them up on 2 different screens. And we just do Astros. We'll do Astros first, and then we'll do a Texans postcast after. So we'll get both shows knocked out next Friday night. Hang out with me late next Friday night. Let's go. Let's go. Let's have some fun on a Friday night. Have some drinks, talk some sports. You guys can have the drinks, of course. Hey, Hall of Fame weekend this weekend. Andre Johnson finally goes to where he belongs. You know, there wasn't a lot of guys in this sport that you get, to me, upset about not being in the Hall of Fame. Andre Johnson was one of them when he just kept having to sit there for a few years as a finalist. I know that he wasn't necessarily a first ballot Hall of Famer because he didn't have a lot of the numbers that you're looking for in terms of touchdowns, and there wasn't the, unbelievable success in the playoffs throughout his career because he played for a franchise that, was no good. He's the first superstar of this franchise. He's the player that kind of put this team, this franchise, on the map. And I will say for me, he's my favorite Texan ever. JJ's right there with him. I think it's a little bit different when I talk about Andre because of, I was a kid, truly a kid before I got into the media world, and it kind of sucked it away. Like JJ, I was a full-on media member, and I covered them every game, every week. I was in the locker room there for like his first 3 years of his career, and it just changes. It just kind of changes your attitude towards it. Now that I've been away from it for a while, like I get like you guys. I sit on the couch and I watch these games and I go nuts. Absolutely nuts. I've been going nuts since the last game where they beat the Colts to get the second pick in the draft, and I was so upset about it, like everybody else wasn't. I was wrong. It's okay. I'm happy to be wrong. But Andre was like the first guy. And, I think he set up a lot of the good things that this franchise tries to be. And it took them a long time on this path. I mean, look, I'm not going to sit here and go over the history of the bad stuff that we all lived through with the Bill O'Brien era and the post-Bill O'Brien era. Like, it sucked. And Andre was a part of that story because, he kind of got disconnected with the franchise. The franchise that made him and the franchise that he made. And what he meant to this franchise, to this city, was a lot. And then you just go look at the numbers he put up. I mean, over 14,000 yards, did 13,597 of those with the Texans. It's kind of like Dream going to the Raptors. I'll never admit that Andre was a Colt or a Titan. I mean, in all fairness, he only had 50 catches between those two teams for 588 yards and 6 touchdowns. The touchdowns are the one thing he lacked. He had to play with Matt Schaub and that offense. Now, I say it wasn't just a Matt Schaub thing. It was also the fact that at the time, that Gary Kubiak offense, they always had good running backs. They always put up good numbers. They always ran the ball really well. And they ran the ball really well in the red zone. And then they got Arian Foster, who had a nose for the end zone. It was just awesome. And Schaub didn't have the ability to throw the touch passes or sling it in there in tight coverage down in that red zone to where Andre was ever a real big-time red zone threat. He only had, 70 touchdowns in his career. Playoff-wise, he had, where many did he have in the playoffs? I don't have his playoff stats up here. It makes absolutely no sense. Playoff stats for Andre Johnson. I know he had at least a touchdown in one of them. He had again. Why is this so hard? I click postseason for the game logs, and it's giving me regular season. I don't want the regular season. I'm trying to do something on the fly. It's not going to do it. So, amazing career. Meant the world to this franchise, this city, and I am very, very happy. And I can't wait for the man of little words. And I tell you this, I will never forget. I was there the night that his suspension came down for beating up Cortland Finnegan, which was awesome. And I made a video of that back in the day that I still can't find on YouTube. I wish I could find it. I went and this is when I had way too much time on my hands. I was not on the air yet every day in radio. I was just producing. and I went through old Gus Johnson highlights of just Gus Johnson screaming, and I was able to splice them all together of Gus Johnson calling the Andre Johnson fight against Cortland Finnegan, and it sounded awesome. It was great. Probably some of my best work I've ever done. Probably the best work I ever did when I was a producer, because I cared about it at that point. But, I will just never forget that night. We were sitting in there, and they fed everybody. They had a night practice, which didn't happen a lot in the regular season, and they fed all the players and us as the media Chick-fil-A. And we're just sitting there standing around Andre's locker eating Chick-fil-A sandwiches, and he's eating a Chick-fil-A sandwich, and he gets a phone call, and he comes back over, and I got suspended. Just talk to him right there. As one of the – I know that wasn't his entire career, but, man, that was just a moment that I'll never forget. I was glad I was the fly on the wall in that moment to see that happen after such a moment that we all were rooting for, because nobody liked Cortland Finnegan back in the day. So looking forward again to his speech this weekend to see what it sounds like, to see who shows up for him as well. You guys enjoy the rest of your Thursday night. Join me tomorrow night right here live on this channel after Astros and Rays. We'll do a Locked On Astros postcast. Talk to you then right here in the Locked On Sports Houston page.